Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 14 of my Industrial Revolution 3 playthrough. In this episode, we are going to use the scrapping machine, as well as start upgrading our factory with electric machines. Enjoy! Now that we are in the process of replacing all of these machines, we are going to need to dump them somewhere. And we can do that in an electric scrapping machine. I touched on it before, and I don't think it would be in the way of anything if we put it here. But it's also in the middle of the factory, and that's kind of where we want it to be. So let's keep the power poles going. And it has the blue lights signifying that it simply has no ingredients, so it's just waiting. So the way this works is if it's metal, glass, wood, stone, or concrete, this will crush them down into their base resources, and it gives you 75% of the resources back. And what you will get are these scraps that we've been kind of holding on to since the beginning of the game. I could have immediately smelted them because we have smelting recipes here. One for copper, tin, bronze, glass, and iron. And it basically counts as an alloy recipe, and that's pretty smart because you already made the item. So it's only a 50% pollution recipe to handle the scrap. The reason why I didn't do it before is because it would have just been a couple of plates and it wouldn't have really mattered. And I would rather automate it, and there was no point in automating it if we were never going to get the scrap to begin with. But now that we are, we can. So let's see how this works. How about we check out the Steam Lab? And you can actually use recipe book for this because it's a hidden recipe here, where if you look at the Steam Laboratory, everything that can be scrapped has a scrapping recipe. It shows us that we will get between 43 and 86 copper scrap and 6 to 12 wood chips because wood went into it. So that is one source of wood chips, is simply scrapping down things that used to have wood, but now you get wood chips. And that's because although you can turn trees into wood chips, you can't turn wood chips into trees. And every recipe is like this. So like our electric lab, if we crushed it down, we would get some copper, some glass, and some iron. And it says 75% on average because what it's essentially doing is giving you between 50% to 100% of the resources back. So back to the Steam Lab, that if we crushed it, the maximums are 86 copper scrap. And if we look at the ingredients for a Steam Lab, it was 86.5. So basically every time you scrap something, you get between 50 and 100% of the resources back. So of course you could just chuck things into the scrapper if you want to see how it works. And because we are going to be scrapping so much, we probably want to have iron chests for all of this. So on the side here will be our output chest. And how about on this side will be the input chest. So inserter goes in, inserters go out. Kind of want to show off the indicator lights, so I want to move these to the side. And actually that does work. So there's kind of two ways of doing this. One is automated and one is manual. And you kind of want to do both. So I would do manual for things that you rarely have in your inventory, but you want to get rid of them. So like Steam Labs, we're never going to have Steam Labs ever again. So there's no point in automating it. So we just go into our manual chest and say, goodbye Steam Labs. So it puts them in, crushes them down into the scraps. And then these inserters put all the scraps into these chests. And it's now clogged, so we're getting the yellow light simply because we don't have enough inserters. In the beginning, you're going to be scrapping a great deal of machines, but very quickly you will stop doing that, and then you don't need to have a huge throughput on this machine. So that's the manual way. The automatic way would be, what items are we going to get in our inventory as a result of converting our factory to electric that is commonly used? So looking at our inventory, it would be things like steam inserters, small steam tanks, steam pipes, one-way valves, lights, steam assemblers. All of these things are basically used as just entities in the world. So as a result, they would be commonly in our inventory, and it would be annoying to have to keep emptying them every time. So instead, how about we just go through here and look at our list and just make one square request. Now granted, we have two of them in there, but it doesn't matter because every time we walk over this plate or whatever one is going to connect to this, it's just going to suck up to one stack at a time, and over time, eventually it will go through every junk item that we have. So because of this, actually, we probably don't need to carry those steam pipes. So we don't need those. It's very satisfying to pick all these items and say, I don't want them anymore. So there we go, we do that. Jump over here and oh man, does that put stuff in there. And this thing will be very limited in the beginning. There's not much we can do about that, but it's a low priority thing. We just want somewhere for our junk to go. Certainly if we have tin chests, which we have, we'd want to get rid of them. Also, there would be bronze chests in the factory too that we wouldn't want. And at this point, we probably can trash our regular water pipes. Although we do have to be careful when you're scrapping things. Because, for example, those water pipes do go into things, but notice at this point, it goes into nothing we would ever want to build ever again. So just be careful when you're scrapping old parts that it's possible that part might go into something that you still want to make and thus you still want to have in your inventory because you haven't fully automated your factory yet. Like, let's say we wanted to build another heavy roller, we would need the steam pipes for that. But also they're not that difficult to make if we really needed it. Just keep it in mind that that is something that can happen. So no pipes, no one-way valves, no undergrounds, no short undergrounds, and even more stuff removed. We also don't need that light armor, but we can just toss that because that's a one-time thing. And basically, we just keep letting this do its thing. And whenever we feel like it, we can run over here and basically just select a bunch of stuff. But right now, our inventory is trashed, so we really don't want to do that. And another thing that you can use this for, it's not the smartest thing to do, but let's say your inventory had a bunch of junk that you didn't want, like let's say copper plates, iron rods. These go places, but another alternative is to just chuck them into the scrapping machine. Like everything else, you will get 75% of the resources back, and in this case it's 37.5 because you get 2 rods per ingot. So that is an option. Ideally you would have either robots or transfer plates to handle all of those, but that's more of a main bus thing. Like right now, we have no bus that handles, say, copper rods, so actually getting rid of them is kind of annoying, although still possible. What you would need to do is find a machine that takes the item and, like, dump it in there. So this is probably the fastest way to get rid of stuff. Alright, the forestry is done. It's so hard to pick. What do we do next? Well, furnaces are going to consume a huge amount of power. How about let's do radars? We don't need those steam pipes anymore, so that's one more thing off the list. But now, we can do the electric forestries. And they are not made from the bronze ones, which means we need to make more. And we made a total of 24 of them. So that's a bit of handcrafting in front of us, because they do take 40 plates each, but that's no big deal. How is the iron actually doing? Well, it's holding up now, because we're making it last a lot longer. Looks like we're about ready to do another trip, though. But it's certainly working. And of course, we will eventually have to address all of this scrap, but I tend to like to just wait for those chests to be completely filled before we mess with it. Because once we're out of the steam age, we'll be able to get rid of a lot of these copper items and dramatically clean up our inventory. Whoops. Looks like we finally used up those repair packs. I would like to make the iron ones, but that actually requires a little bit of rubber. That each pack has additional durability and additional repair speed, so you always want to use the best repair pack if possible. I guess we'll just leave that damaged for now and we'll fix it next time. And since we don't have construction robots covering our factory, we probably don't need to automate the making of repair packs and simply can handcraft them for now. This is the very odd part of IR3 where part of your factory is electric and part of it is steam, and I guess even part of it is burner too. I definitely recommend making everything electric, but that is not an overnight process, so there are some growing pains involved. And we're definitely getting a nice buildup of rubber now, which is nice to see. I don't think we necessarily need to have a whole bunch of this in our inventory, just so we can make a few repair packs, so let's just make what we can as a result of the rubber we picked up, and radars are done. I suppose we should probably just hit all of this electric stuff, just so we have our choice of what to upgrade and when. Alright, I suppose it's time for electric furnaces. There are no energy bonuses for using electric furnaces over the bronze ones. However, it does take modules, which thus can give us an energy savings. And the alloy furnace just requires more iron plates. And at some point, you will have to upgrade to electric furnaces. You can't use these bronze furnaces for everything, because you do need the better furnaces for better materials, as it's stated. Well, we don't have all of the forestries yet, but we can start plopping them in. And probably the most important one would be these. But now, they unfortunately require electricity. We can try to copy it so we can use it again. Now we are close enough to send a power pole in, which now delivers light to the darkness of the forestries. Also, it's interesting that these electric forestries actually supply their own light, which is pretty neat. I mean, I suppose that is what it's doing. Supplying light so it can grow day or night. Still, though, I'll put one light at the base of each one of these big poles, just so we have the maximum amount of light coverage. And this will double our wood output, which means we need to double our ability to make charcoal. How are we doing on all of this junk here? Oh, we actually almost got through it all, which means time to put more in there. And right now, the labs are still our biggest energy consumer by far. These charcoal kilns will always operate in this way. However, we can at least save all of the wood by switching them to electric. And now we're going to need to have twice as many of them. I think the wood chips will be fine, because we only produced the 0.31, so it would be double that, and that can go through way more. And well, this is kind of what's going to start happening, is everywhere we put electricity, we're going to find places that have burners or some other kind of undesirable technology that we can then replace. Okay, and one more conversion. It just might be a little difficult to find some of those burner inserters, which potentially could be buried in very distant places. But we are making a lot of wood now. That is substantial. We haven't even finished upgrading everything yet. Like, for example, right here. We have a very distant and lonely crushing machine, especially now that we have power poles that are nearby, and that's just kind of what happens, that the web of electricity will continue to expand until it is everywhere. And there we go. More electricity delivered to the factory. Awesome, that's done. We're starting to get this list all filled out. One other thing that would be fantastic to upgrade is our mining drills. And that's actually the first time that we've got any kind of upgrade to them at all. And comparing them to the steam mining drill, it is twice as fast with double the pollution and double the energy consumption. However, it does have a wider mining range. But like all other electric machines, the main thing that sets it apart from steam is that it can use modules. So there we go, we should be making huge amounts of wood now. You can kind of tell, because pretty much all of our charcoal kilns are going at full blast. And looks like we are finally done. Well, almost. Of scrapping things down, but we have all these bronze forestries we won't need anymore. And also, we could throw the electric ones in there too, if we just didn't want to have them in our inventory. But something tells me that we're going to want to grow more trees in our near future. Looking at our list here, we can kind of see that we don't need burner inserters, we won't need any steam crushers, so that's more that's gone. But since our inventory is starting to get relatively cleaned out here, we should probably attempt to start dealing with this scrap. So first you just pick up a bunch, and we would do this manually, and now we have all of this copper scrap, so it's time to process it. And a cool thing about the scrap recipes is all of it goes into the same type of furnace, and the recipes on the furnace will automatically change based on what you throw in there. So although it seems a little crude, we absolutely can throw a bunch of it in the back of our copper crusher here, and it will just make its way to the necessary furnaces. So let's come here and actually switch this entire thing over to copper scrap instead, and leave one slot, because also we might want to put some crushed copper ore in there. And we do that, although I see that there is a bit of a flaw here because priority is given to the inserters on the side. Although we could actually fix that. It's funny that we're getting rid of all of our steam stuff, but this could be fixed with a steam loader. So let's handcraft one. So there we go. Now it has priority, and you'll start to see all of that scrap make its way down the belts. And it looks pretty cool. And it will eventually get sucked into a machine that can handle it. And that was what most of it was, and that makes sense because we were in the copper age. But just grab more. Of course, more of it is copper. Come back down here, get rid of it, and just as full. So Gonna have to wait a while on that. But we've got some other scrap we can deal with. Let's do the tin now. It's essentially the same thing. And actually, we should switch that over to iron chest. And this is definitely a please step on me here plate because this is getting rid of junk. So let's set the recipe now for tin. Get rid of 1. Switch that over to the crushed tin. And it's gone. Now it will slowly make its way down to the relevant machines. Let's switch this one over too. Might as well use every slot available. There we go. And definitely can see all of the copper scrap now has priority, and I really want to see it actually going into the furnaces to show that this actually works. It doesn't seem like it would work, because on so many mods you actually have to set the recipes, but in IR3 it works. Okay, of course we're going to keep collecting other scrap while we're crushing things. The wood chips are pretty straightforward, because the only thing they go into, at least right now, is the charcoal. So that's pretty straightforward. 1 inserter. Say, pick up the chips. And it's gone. Glass is a little more tricky, because it doesn't quite work in the same way where there is an input of belt. So probably the best thing we can do here is just insert it either on the top or the bottom. And it looks like this one seems like it's getting priority. Although this is actually an alloy furnace now that I think about it. So surprisingly, this is done in a not alloy furnace. We still can kind of do it. It's just way out of the way. And finally, glass fragments. And it'll be gone. And it'll also get priority over this machine. So mining is done then. Alright, there's a couple other electric things that would be really useful right now. One is loaders, because we are starting to use them for things, so not having to do it with steam would be great. And I think the energy consumption and everything is basically the same, it just runs on electricity now. And one other big thing we can do are modules. I touched on it before, but how IR3 does modules is actually really interesting. Where essentially you take your basic computer, which is the component that had all of those circuits in it, and you can turn it into any module. So you can turn it into an efficiency module, productivity module, or a speed module. And the way the modules work is very similar to vanilla. However, the really neat thing of IR3 is what happens if you have too many of one module. Well, you can format the module and turn it back into the computer that it started as, and then turn that into a different module. So if you find yourself with way too many modules or you're upgrading your factory, you can actually turn them into computers again. And the machine that does this is the module programmer. So we'll definitely want that, because as we are replacing all these machines with electric, we'll also want to start considering what kind of modules we want to use. But other than that, I think that basically covers most of the immediate things that we need for the electrification of our factory. Everything else is upgrades and various things. So right now we should probably just focus on making the factory electric. And we're actually building up charcoal again because we are making our factory more and more efficient. Well, we still had a little bit more to throw in there, but for the most part, our scrapping machine is done. So we've caught up. It is annoying that every time you run over there and pick up some scrap, you're going to have like a huge amount of stuff in your inventory, but that's kind of how it works. And look at that. The scrap has made it to the furnace, and it is turning them into ingots. And the recipe is only 50% pollution. And the same is now occurring with tin. We do have some bronze scrap though, and kind of like before, we need to remember that this is going to be a standard furnace because it is not an alloy. So since this one is running, it seems like the priority for bronze ingots is given to this side. This is also going to throw some bronze ingots in here, which isn't necessarily something we want it to do. It looks like it's inserting on the right, but that'll actually still accomplish the same goal. But nonetheless, I think I want to remove the filters on that. And I guess since we're here, we'll just make it iron, because the dump plate can be over here. That'll be differentiated from the big plate, which is something we do want to step on because we do want to get rid of the bronze scrap, and we don't want to get rid of the ingots. Any more room for scrap in here? Kind of. We still have a lot left over. But nonetheless, that is going through it. Kind of want to put this plate down here because it's kind of annoying walking up there. But that is how scrapping works, and that will continue for quite some time. Power usage is still alright. Most of it is going into the lab still. So what else do we want to work on here? Well, we want to stay nearby where we have power poles, and also kind of near the edge of the factory because that's where the pipes stop. because then we can start clearing them out and moving them back towards the source. For one, we've got some radars out here in the edge, so let's work on those. Radars are pretty easy to make with our resources we have on hand. And I guess we'll just put it in the same spot, but you can see how it has a one chunk greater range in all directions. But for now, I suppose I will just put it where the other one was. So there's our slightly greater range. So we'll start picking up pipes, and also picking up steam lamps on the way. Well, one thing that can be converted here are all of these bronze furnaces working on iron. And we've got our new ones here. It does require a lot of copper cable though, which is interesting. I mean, it's fine, but if we're going to be doing some handcrafting, we should probably automate that. It's kind of funny this is the first time that we've needed it. Not even sure where the first place to grab it would be. Probably from our light machine. Actually, we could just kind of put it right here on the end. It's way out of the way, but it would work. I guess we'll put the iron pipes in here since all of this running on steam is not long for this world. So there it goes. Making our request, but it's probably going to take quite some time. Guess the best we can do is just kind of pick up the copper cable out of all of these various assemblers. That is an annoying aspect of the electric furnace, all of those copper cables, but I don't feel like we need to be automating the furnaces quite yet. Basically, we want to wait for robots before we start automating very large buildings like that. So it's time to check out what the furnaces look like. Of course, they need electricity, and they don't need this charcoal. Feels weird taking the charcoal out, but we don't need it anymore for this. And this was not built with power poles in mind, but we can do an alternating set of poles like that and then get them connected. So there they are. They still have that nice cool glow to them, and they have the green status lights. And we can just unhook the charcoal. And now that these are running, they are our greatest energy consumption, which does make sense. Well, running low on iron, which means time for more. However, now that we have access to the electric loader, we can do this a lot easier. Going through some splitters to get it all down to one. And I guess we should pick all that up just to make sure that it is evenly distributed. Although the roller will just put it all into one slot anyway. Awesome. Modules are done. And at this point, I think we are pretty good. It took a lot of research to get all of the various electric things, but now we have some work in front of us. We basically need to electrify our factory before we go any further, because anything else we do is just going to add complication that we'll probably later have to reverse or just do differently. So we might as well get everything electrified now. And of course, every other relevant thing needs to be electrified as well. And since we're looking at them, we might as well upgrade any chests we find, even though it probably won't make a difference. That's one more steam line that we can push back. So we're taking the web and pushing it back to its source. And the thing I was working towards here was getting to this radar as well, because now there should be a radar hole, and we know exactly how big it is, so we can put this radar in the new proper location. It has a much, much bigger range to it, so we only needed 2 instead of 3. So what are we going to upgrade next? Perhaps the glass setup, where that is 13 furnaces and 9 of the crushers. And we'll walk over our junk plate right here, just to get rid of all that stuff we've been picking up. So let's try the alloy furnaces. And it's interesting to note that the regular bronze furnace has the 1 porthole in there, but the alloy one has 2. So they do have different graphics. And the same applies for the alloy furnaces as well. And it's not just the color. You can tell that the actual graphics on the side of the furnace are different. So that's really neat. And unfortunately, we can't fast replace these inserters because there's pipes there, which means we have to pick them all up. And in fact, I almost want to do a special one where we're picking up steam pipes and steam inserters, because pretty much all of it we don't want. And one more thing, the lamps. How come there's 2 of them here? I'm not sure. Let's just do both of them. But now we can come through here and pick up all of it. That said, though, this was a situation for using the pump to pump it back into the system. So we'll do that. And it's very quickly gone. We don't need these other pipes either. And in go the electric crushers. The way they work is the same. So there we go. Lots of light. Lots of electricity. being consumed, in fact more than we have available. So it's time to upgrade. This furnace, however, will work the same, but it doesn't need fuel anymore. And you can see the red lights on the side of these machines, that those red lights mean that we ran out of power, or it wasn't at full power because of a lack of electricity. So I guess we'll double up our power here. We need another 8 steam engines and 4 boilers. The boilers are easy to make so long as we have a lot of bricks. And we'll get rid of our junk here. Add any more that we're getting. Well, certainly we don't need bronze furnaces, or the alloy furnaces, or the telescopes. So it's all gone and getting processed. We'll just grab a stack of 10 of them. I'm sure we'll need more before too long. Oh yeah, I guess we can finally hook this up. Doesn't run very often, but looks like we have plenty of rubber now. In fact, it has made it all the way back here. Although it seems like this machine is not fast enough. And I guess that kind of makes sense. It's pushing 2 different materials, so it probably needs 2 inserters, even though technically the first inserter is fast enough that it is stuck on the wood chips. So we'll put a second one in there, and that'll allow it to run at full speed, but it won't really run at full speed for too long because it's about to be filled up, and then all of the rubber wood will just back up along that side of the belt and eventually get to the trees. So basically we just want to do the same thing here. It is now a repeatable pattern, and the wires even line up. The only thing we might want to remove are those lights, because that's a few too many lights if we did that. So we hook up everything, and we're starting to get close to the output of 1 belt, but we're not quite there yet. If we check this, it's still its own network, which means everything is good, and now we have enough power. So it's time to push the steam back and find the next furthest thing away, which is the tin setup, which means we need to have 12 furnaces and 8 crushers. It is a lot of handcrafting in a relatively short period of time. We are doing pretty significant upgrades to the factory, considering that prior to this we just kind of did incremental upgrades as required, but now we are upgrading everything in the factory. It's just our factory wasn't designed to put out a huge amount of materials all at once. So we replace everything, and we can actually use an upgrade planner for this. At least the burner inserters can be turned into electric inserters without much fuss. And part of this pipe is going to need to stay here because we eventually need to get it back to its source. So because of that, maybe we should just run a special one now, so it's not something we have to worry about. So how about we run it through here? I guess we can also put a light in here, but that will let us start pulling the steam pipes back. And I guess since we're here, we'll pump more of the steam out. We are still sending coal on this belt. It's kind of awkward, but for now, how about we just continue to do it until we have switched everything out. But there we go. More electricity. And we gotta switch that loader out too. Same with this one, in addition to its chest. Which means now we're starting to approach this craziness of mines. I kind of want to revisit these and put all these miners in the exact spots necessary to fully mine it out, and hopefully with the least amount of mess. So we'll need at least 8 of them. Oh, that was so much junk. Wow, that mine's completely out. Alright, well this is going to create an incredible amount of junk. But honestly, I kind of just want to pick up everything. There really isn't that much left of a lot of this compared to what it started as. For example, with stone, this is all we have left. And it's either we can mine a little bit of copper or a little bit of coal. Well, since we have the setup for coal, I guess we'll place it here and you can see the wider range for sure, where this just goes up as before. We still have this chest here. Let's upgrade it. Use the unloader. Fortunately, getting every last little bit of it without pulling in the other mines is going to be quite difficult. But how about we do this? And then that is actually the coal input. These miners are pretty big in comparison to the size of the power poles, but if you put enough of them in here, they will reach. Well, that's a problem. Okay, well we need a splitter, so we have to do our zigzag of belts. Just kind of a giant mess in here, so we can hook that back up so fuel can go back to the boilers. And I think this giant mess of everything has gotten stone and coal taken care of. So now we just need the rest of our miners. And yeah, there you go. You can see that the mining drills have their own colored lights on them, and you see them flashing red. Yep, which says the factory doesn't have any power. And that was odd. I must not have hooked up a pipe correctly. Or nope. Didn't get the fuel, because that was never hooked up again. Okay. Well, now we need a dedicated fuel belt here, and it can hook up there. Let's follow the fuel and see everything start up again. Luckily it will, and this is the exact reason why we're using the steam engine here. So in the event that the factory runs out of power, it can start itself up again while simultaneously using electric inserters for the boilers. And there we go. Powered up again. And you see this sawtooth going on here? That's usually loaders. See if we can select them. Yeah, that's it. That they operate very immediately, so they're on, off, on, off, on, off. So you kind of see that sawtooth in the power usage, specifically from loaders. I think that covers every ore patch while simultaneously routing everything where it needs to go. And that's the end of this episode. On the next one, we are going to continue to pull out the steam machines and replace them with electric ones. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.